Hello everybody and welcome back to another Doctor Who Big Finish audio drama review on the Host Productions. Today's review is in fact going to be the start of a brand new series of reviews as I finally delve into the 8th Doctor and Lucie Miller adventures, starring Paul McGann and Sheridan Smith. Now this is a series of reviews that I've wanted to do for many years. In fact, when I first got into Big Finish a number of years ago, one of the things that people kept on saying to me was check out the 8th Doctor and Lucie Miller adventures. They are a perfect jumping on point. They are brilliant for beginners. However, due to the massive amount of Big Finish that I already cover on this channel as it is, keeping up with the latest releases, I find it quite hard to go back and take a look at the immense back catalogue that Big Finish do of course have on offer. However, due to current circumstances being the lockdown of summer 2020, I've had a little bit more time on my hands, meaning that I've finally been able to take a look at this series for the first ever time. So in today's review I'm going to be taking a look at Blood of the Daleks as written by Steve Lyons. This is the opening two-parter for this series, introducing Lucie Miller to the 8th Doctor's TARDIS, a brand new beginning for a brand new era. Now this is how this series is going to pan out. Originally I intended to review these episodes within two halves, taking a look at the entire season divided across two reviews, 4 releases within each review. However, I put up a poll on Twitter and it was rather split. People liked that idea, but they also thought having separate mini reviews was also a good idea. Therefore, I've decided to opt for singular reviews. However, for this case, as in Blood of the Daleks, of course due to it being a two-parter, I've decided to review this story as one, taking a look at both releases, and this will be exactly the same format that I also take for Human Resources, which is of course the Series 1 finale. So of course in the next review I will be taking a look at the Horror of Glam Rock, and then in the one after that I'll be taking a look at Immortal Beloved. So I hope you enjoy the review, because personally I can't wait to start this journey into an era that I've heard lots and lots of positive things about. So here we go, the beginning of a brand new exciting adventure, starting off at the very beginning with Series 1, Episode 1, Blood of the Daleks, as written by Steve Lyons. This episode is directed and produced by Nicholas Briggs alongside Sarah Gosling, and script edited by Alan Barnes. Now the first thing to in fact note when moving on to this story is that I haven't listened to part 2 as of yet. I thought that would be an effective way to review this story, because rather unusually, and something that Big Finish have tended to move away from in the past few years, is that this story is available singularly on the Big Finish website as part 1 alone. If you want to listen to the full story, you need to buy 2 individual CDs, meaning that by buying part 1 you are buying half a story, and normally when you get a 2-hour episode of Doctor Who, it's normally a part of the Big Finish main range and it is one singular product. So that alone, if you are looking to get into the Big Finish 8th Doctor and Lucie Miller adventures, I recommend buying the bundle for part 1, because there is 2 stories within season 1 that follow that format, being the opening story Blood of the Daleks and the series finale Human Resources. And then of course by buying the bundle you save money as well as get all of the stories in between, and it just makes life a little bit easier. Now Blood of the Daleks is a story that I was really nervous to start off with, because I've been told for so long how brilliant the 8th Doctor and Lucie Miller adventures are, and having listened to many Big Finish stories over the years, I was worried that having been told it's amazing, that the characters are brilliant, that the stories are also brilliant as well, I thought that I was going to come out the other side underwhelmed, sort of overhyped, thinking that this series was going to be much grander than it actually is. However, instantly, as soon as you start this story, it feels different, it feels grand, and it feels like a perfect jumping on point for Big Finish. It is a perfect showcase as to how effective the audio drama format can be it if you have listened to Big Finish before, or if you are somebody who is looking for a new adventure to kick off your audio drama collection. This is a story that I do recommend, because it seems that a lot of effort has gone into this series to make it listenable. Of course, this episode did originally get broadcast on BBC Radio 7, and I'm assuming that that might be one of the reasons why this series is so watchable, so that people can tune in each week, understand all of the characters, understand the plot of the story rather easily, and follow it in a way that doesn't particularly require too much effort. It is very much like people always refer to it, it is the Big Finish equivalent of the new series Doctor Who revamp. So what happens within this story? The 8th Doctor is travelling in the TARDIS after a security breach causes a person to arrive within the TARDIS console room, being none other than Lucie Bleeding Miller. Instantly the Doctor and Lucie start arguing because she has of course breached the TARDIS security, and his initial aim is to get her back home to Blackpool within 2006. She's about to start her brand new day at work, however something has whisked her off into time and space, and the vast majority of this story is basically discussing their relationship, which is a rather unstable one, to say the least. We don't necessarily have a warm, happy introduction that you would come to expect with Rose or Martha. It's one of those ones where you get two people that are put together and they don't necessarily want to be together. It's a bit like Romana 1 and the 4th Doctor within The Key to Time, where we have them both arguing, and we have Lucie having these brilliant insults, calling the Doctor these many different things, asking if his hair is in fact a wig, saying why is he wearing this unusual frock coat. It's brilliant. It makes the story instantly likeable from the start because their relationship is simply that unconventional, and you can't wait to kind of see how it will pan out for the rest of the season. I think that Paul Mcgann is also equally as enjoyable because you get to see this side of his Doctor that is a bit happier. You get to see the Doctor in a frame of mind that is more adventurous and welcoming, and of course I've listened to Paul Mcgann in Doom Coalition and Ravenous and The Time War, all of which have put mental strain on the Doctor overall because he's lost lots of things by this point. He's got the strain of the Time War, and it is nice to be able to go back to a form of 8th Doctor that is simply just having fun. He's travelling around the universe, meeting different people, and it's like traditional Doctor Who again, and I do miss this version of Mcgann, and I think that it was in fact one of the main appeals to the Further Adventures of Lucie Miller box set released in 2019. So after the Doctor promises to take Lucie back home, basically the TARDIS bounces off Earth and goes to Red Rocket Rising, a planet that has been devastated by what looks like a nuclear war. Red Rocket Rising has in fact been savaged basically, all of the buildings are pretty much on fire, the sky has been shrouded in a dust cloud, meaning that the suns have been blocked out, and it is a nuclear wasteland pretty much. You have these people within society who are causing riots because the main government and Citadel have left the planet and abandoned everybody, with the exception of one person, being Eileen Clint, who, because she is the one person of government left, has kind of been promoted to the role of acting president or prime minister. In this episode we are also introduced to Asha, who is basically somebody from the previous regime who committed a few crimes, and we have Clint kind of keeping her grip on her, trying to still instill justice on this person that has admittedly done a lot of bad things, and there is a mystery surrounding her within part 1 that is rather intriguing to see unfold throughout the different scenes, especially because at this current time of filming the review I haven't listened to part 2 because I thought that would be the best way to approach this series, listening to part 1 and reviewing part 1 individually, as opposed to having part 2 almost tainting my opinion of the first half of the story, especially because I don't know what happens next, and I thought that would be a good opportunity to kind of review this episode, not really knowing what happens within the second part. Of course, as the title suggests, this story doesn't hide the fact that the Daleks are involved, however, not in the same style that you would come to expect. It seems from my guessing at this point there is a lot of parallels between that of the nuclear blast out of Skaro, as well as the nuclear fallout on Red Rocket Rising, so we have a parallel between them and kind of something that makes them similar. The one way that the people of Red Rocket Rising can go outside as the world is increasingly becoming worse would be to put themselves within metal caskets, much like how the Daleks are, and because of that we have them using a much more sympathising role, which is very eerie to watch unfold. We have the people of Red Rocket Rising in fact excited over the Daleks' arrival, as opposed to kind of being cautious and knowing how evil they are in fact are. So the vast majority of part 1 is kind of the listener knowing what is about to happen and just waiting for it to unfold. But that doesn't mean that this episode is sadly inevitable or anything like that. Kind of in a way, the fact the listener knows what is going to happen and knows that Red Rocket Rising is in doom is one of the main reasons why this story is in fact quite gripping. We are introduced to the character of Tom Cranwell, who is basically the Earth equivalent of a conspiracy person who likes theories and likes mysteries and believing that everything is not quite what it seems and government cover-ups, and he's a great character. You instantly get involved with him within this story and you kind of sympathise again, because even though he is seen to be mad and other people are just rioting, he in fact is the person that knows the truth. He knows that the Daleks are these vicious creatures that shouldn't be trusted, and he is in this little vulnerable hut whilst the Doctor and Lucie Miller barge in, and he believes that they are in fact a part of the rising up and the aliens have came and crash landed. I think that overall for Blood of the Daleks Part 1 it is a brilliant way to start off this series. I love the fact that the Daleks are involved so early on, and you definitely get the sense of threat from this story. When the Daleks move in, you do feel like they are a force to be reckoned with, and I love the scene where Paul Mcgann acknowledges what the Daleks are and says, "I was there at their birth and I've seen how vicious they can be," and I thought that was a really great piece of acting from Paul Mcgann, and likewise as well Sheridan Smith. It's the type of character that you can have a laugh with. She has lots of jokes, she calls the Daleks dome heads throughout this story, and it's instantly a relationship that, because it is quite unconventional, it's one that you are intrigued by straight away, because the Doctor wants to find out where has Lucie Miller came from, how has she found her way into the TARDIS, and I imagine that the rest of this series is possibly going to be focusing on that. And that is all that I'm going to say about Blood of the Daleks Part 1. I'm going to leave quite a lot of the plot a mystery, however overall an enjoyable atmospheric adventure with some brilliant sound design and music, and in fact some of the best sound design and music that I've experienced on Big Finish for quite a long time. So without further ado, let's move on to Blood of the Daleks Part 2. So it has in fact been a few days since my previous listen of Blood of the Daleks Part 1. I decided to listen over a few of the scenes from the previous story and then go into Blood of the Daleks Part 2. So this episode does of course feature exactly the same production team and is once again written by Steve Lyons, featuring Paul Mcgann and Sheridan Smith, and this time round we get a much more heavy focus on the Daleks, because we get to see them invading Red Rocket Rising and basically having a bit of a remembrance of the Dalek style conflict between a different fraction of Dalek. The first people that I want to credit as a part of this review is Andy Hardwick and Gareth Jenkins, because they are the people behind the music and the sound design for this series, and it is a similar compliment for Blood of the Daleks Part 1, as I was mentioning how the episode is styled overall, makes it very welcoming for new listeners as well as people who've listened to Big Finish before. And I think that one of the main things that contribute to the story overall and how it sounds is the musical score and the sound design behind it, because everything about the story is very visual. It's one of those stories that you can't help but picture within your head as the different scenes unfold, and because of that again it makes it very good for new listeners to in fact pick up, because it's a very easy story to follow, because you've got lots of scenes with very good characters that are very strong, and that is accompanied by the music, making it very dramatic. It does feel like a new series episode of Doctor Who, with the music being ever so slightly louder from episodes that you would come to expect, say, within the other classic series Doctor eras. And I think overall, as I say, it creates a cinematic atmosphere for the story that makes it grander as opposed to your usual Doctor Who episode. So this time round we start to see a little bit more of the relevance of the Blood of the Daleks title, as we get to see the Daleks fighting over the concept of purity. Not going fully into the narrative of the story, because if you are interested by what I say, you can of course check out this release in your own time, but we basically have two different fractions of Dalek, one of which has been created by Dr. Martez, of course after his experiments, after the previous crash, and then we have the other Daleks coming along, and it is a really lovely way to use an old idea, that whole concept of purity that the Daleks seem to be obsessed with, that on occasion does seem to be lost within other new series Doctor Who episodes, the likes of, say, Victory of the Daleks and Asylum of the Daleks. There's quite a lot of contradictions within those episodes, where we have one episode, I think it was Victory, where we have the New Paradigm shooting the originals, and then you have within Asylum the Daleks refusing to kill their species even if they are slightly impure or got something wrong with them, because that would be an act against the Dalek species overall. coverall or some jargon like that. And I thought it was a good element of the story. Again, I love the fact that we see the Daleks fighting over what is a war-torn world that is completely their doing because they are the ones that committed the act within the first story. Tom Cardwell is one of the best elements of this episode. I love the fact that we get to see this mad conspiracyist person being developed a little bit further, and that is something that is prominent throughout this story. All of the main characters are people that you can instantly get behind. We have Asher Graven in there, of course, as portrayed by Hayley Atwell, who would then go on to have a massive career within the likes of Marvel, so it's very interesting to see her in a very minor Doctor Who role. And we also have, of course, Tom Cardwell in there as well, and Eileen Clint, all of which are very different characters from very different ends of society, but I like their contributions to the episode. I love when the Daleks are trying to track down the Doctor. We have her saying, we could just do a standard police operation. She's very naive about what the Daleks stand for, because she kind of still has that hope embedded within her that the Daleks have come to save them, which is, of course, pretty much nowhere near the truth of what the Daleks really want. Of course, we get that continuation of the challenging relationship between the Doctor and Lucie Miller, because we have two very different characters that have been forced together, and we have Lucie being imprisoned throughout this story on the Dalek spaceship. And of course, unusually like other episodes of Doctor Who, normally when you have the companion being imprisoned and the Daleks holding them hostage and them threatening the Doctor, saying we're going to kill her if you don't act in the way that we want, normally that would have a bit more force behind it, an emphasis. However, the unusual thing with this scenario is that we have a Doctor and a person that the Doctor has only just met, meaning that he doesn't particularly have an emotional connection to the character. And instead we have Lucie saying things like, well, I don't really care about him, I don't really know who he is, I've only just met him, and all of that, and it makes for an interesting twist on this story. But I think throughout this episode you get that whole idea of their relationship coming together. I think by the very end you start to see that formation of a Doctor-companion relationship, and this whole concept of Lucie essentially being somebody who is under special surveillance and has been thrown onto the Doctor, and the Doctor's responsibility is to care for her regardless of if he wants to or not. And I assume that is going to be something that we are going to see throughout the vast majority of Season 1, or maybe into Series 2 as well. I think that this episode certainly sets up a few of the possible plot arcs that will be continued throughout this series. The likes of at the very end of the episode when the Doctor saves Red Rocket Rising, we have a potential bright future for the planet on the horizon, but also an imminent darkness in there as well, that something else could come along and attack them. And likewise at the same time we have the departure of Lucie Miller essentially from the TARDIS, however coming back to see the Doctor at the very end because he can't in fact leave without her. It's a very interesting way to start off a series, and again a little bit different to that of new series Doctor Who, however still has that trait in there of new series Doctor Who of being very fast-paced, dramatic and action-packed. I think that the Daleks do also seem quite ruthless throughout this story. I think that one of the things I would have liked to see expanded upon if we had a bit more time was the Daleks actually going around and killing people, because we have Tom Cardwell referring to them going around and killing people. However, we don't particularly see it. If anything, the civilians of Red Rocket Rising are kind of placed onto the back burner, with the exception of a few moments within the final act, and a few minutes here and there of the Daleks going out onto Red Rocket Rising and actually killing people as a part of a scene, making them a little bit more of a threat, because there is a focus within this story that is completely around this other version of Dalek, and kind of forgetting the inhabitants of Red Rocket Rising in there as well. There is also a few gruesome elements throughout this story that I imagined if it was a new series episode it would have been toned down a little bit. The whole concept that is kind of used within Parting of the Ways. We have the Daleks using humans and using their organs and internal elements to create a new Dalek race. However, I like the way it was used in this story. It felt a little bit more horrific, which is good. It's nice to have a Doctor Who story that did in a way feel quite adult. So in conclusion, for both parts of Blood of the Daleks, a solid start to this series of adventures. I like the way that we have the introduction of Lucie Miller, and it wasn't the introduction that I was expecting. I was expecting a relationship being formed with the Doctor and Lucie that was very similar to that of Rose and the Doctor, or any other companion really. We have them coming together within a conflict, but just being a bit more natural, as opposed to two characters that have essentially been forced together. I love the way the Daleks are written throughout this story, and and overall I think that the plot itself is rather captivating and is a brilliant strong start, as I say, to this era within the 8th Doctor period of Doctor Who history. And as per usual with this story, overall it is great to see that more adventurous and fun side of Paul McGann, but also those sprinklings in there as well, that even though this Doctor seems quite romantic and happy on the front, when he's put into a scenario that is rather challenging, he does in fact have a darker side to his personality, which is a lot more serious, possibly foreshadowing side of his Doctor that we would of course see later on within his era. If you are somebody who can't afford the Lucie Miller bundle of adventures, I definitely recommend buying Blood of the Daleks separately as a 2-part story and listening to that, and if you like those adventures, maybe then progressing on to the other episodes within the series, or pick and mixing the episodes that you like the sound of, as opposed to some of the lesser known stories perhaps in between. But this is, as I said, a definite solid start. And next up, as a part of this series, we move on to Horror of Glam Rock. So thank you very much for watching this review. I hope you have enjoyed it. Do of course stay tuned on The Host Productions for brand new Doctor Who content each and every week, including of course Big Finish reviews on a regular basis. And do also stay tuned for the next part of this series as I review The Horror of Glam Rock. And until then, I shall see you all next time. Bye for now.